Hi, and welcome back. Attorney Steve Vondran here, and welcome to Verdict Nation. I am joined here live with super guest, I should say.
Frontline Lacey.
All right, I told you I would have her here, and I got her here. Yeah, baby.
Kicking and punching.
Yeah, right. She's kicking and punching. So anyway, we are going to do some coverage on Verdict Nation. This is probably the big case of the year as far as I can tell. So we wanted to do some talk about the Cosby trial. Bill Cosby, what do you know about that?
Well, like everything, I find it so odd that these women waited years and years and years and years, didn't talk about it, and now everybody's coming out of the woodwork. So I find it to just be bizarre, because I'm kind of shocked that they're retrying this. I thought they'd let it die, but guess they're not. So I don't know if these women are. Real story really happened. I think it did. Kind of sad because this guy's 81 years old now, and on the last part of his life he has to deal with something like this. Talk about stuff never going away. So that's my 2 cents. I might have more later.
Wow, that was probably worth a nickel or so. So yeah, I mean, and you're right as far as letting it go away. Some of the background facts, I just want to make sure people that are joining us for this at least have some of the background facts that I have. And you know what? Before I even say that, let's not even call them facts, because you know how everybody gets all uptight about the facts. Mm-hmm. Let's just say these are, first of all, in a criminal court, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law by a jury of their peers. And the elements have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, all the elements of the crime. And we're going to go over that tomorrow or sometime this week. We're going to give you what the actual elements they have to prove are. But just to give you some general background in case this is your intro into the case, you know, Bill Cosby was what they called America's dad. Remember, yeah. They called him America's dad. He was a comedian and a actor and a comedian on the Cosby Show.
Yes.
And a very, very funny guy, wouldn't you have to say?
Yeah. He was funny.
So he was a loved actor, comedian. Did those Jell-O pudding commercials, mm-hmm. wasn't it? Yeah. See,
it's kind of all-American, is what he kind of was.
All-American guy, and. Yeah, so he, you know, and I believe if you look up his educational credentials, I believe he actually attained a doctorate. So yeah, he from, I believe it was UMass, and so he was, you know, an accomplished guy that, you know, that made it happen. So at any rate, there was a lot of what the sort of the general allegations are, and there's from, you know, 50 or so other women, is that he would.
That many women? I didn't know it was that many women.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why I say, you know, this is not everything that I'm saying here. This is general information. This is stuff that I've read from sites that I believe to be somewhat reputable. Or
CNN?
Actually, CNN was one of my sources, because usually they're very factual as far as these court cases. And there were other sources as well. But I'm so take it with a grain of salt. These are the things I've heard. I wasn't there at the first trial, but let's move on with that. So. At any rate, so there were a lot of women, 50 or even 60, some sources say, that came forward and said that he had somehow slipped them, I don't want to say a roofie, but Quaaludes, you know. And actually, this is part of the issue is, well, what was he slipping, if anything? You know, what was he slipping to them? So one of so a lot of women have sort of the common story that they received something, they were with him, there was some sort of either groping or some types of sex. There's a question whether or not it was consensual sex. There's questions as to what the actual pills or powders or whatever it may have been, what they actually were. And that's one of the problems, I think, why this led to a mistrial in the first place, is there really was a what you would call a lack of evidence. And, you know, when you're thinking about putting somebody away for 30 years, you know, or the rest of their life, I think Bill Cosby's 80 now, you know, you better have the evidence. It better line up. You better have those elements proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But in the first trial, there was no rape kit. There was no DNA evidence. There was no toxicology tests. no stained clothes, no viral videos, none of that stuff. So the question is, going back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s when a lot of these women claim this was happening, the problem is you got to have the evidence.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, so it's just their word against his is all they have?
Well, yeah, I mean, and so what they tried to do in the first trial, which ended in a mistrial. And in case you don't know what a mistrial is, in a criminal case, the jury has to agree 100% unanimously, not anonymously, but they do have to have a unanimous verdict, which is one of the hurdles a prosecution always has, that you have to convince all 12 of those jurors that this person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the hurdle the prosecution always faces. So in the first trial, they couldn't get there. Some said it was 10-2, some said it was split. There's various stories I found on that, but it ended in a mistrial. They couldn't get all the parties to agree, and they gave them a full 5 days of deliberation. So but the point is, it is about evidence, and I guess the question would be in this trial, well, what's going to be new?
Right, new evidence.
And one of the big things that came out in the first trial was there was originally, well, let me put it to you this way. This incident apparently happened in 2004. Let me finish with the background facts. Okay. It apparently happened in 2004 at Bill Cosby's house in Pennsylvania. And the gal that's the victim in this case, the alleged victim, everything here is alleged. Everything I'm saying is alleged, so let's just bear that in mind. But apparently she was a former basketball staffer at Temple University, where Cosby, I think he was on the border regions. At any rate, they had sort of knew each other, and she mentioned something about having a bad day or something, and he said, well, here's something to take the edge off. He claims it was some sort of cold medication or a herbal supplement of some sort, so I don't know exactly what that is. He claims it was a romantic encounter, so forth and so on, consensual, and her version of it that I read was different. She said, she drank something, I think it was, or he took the pill he gave her, and she started seeing double, and next thing she woke up all scared and frozen and stuff like that. So that's the conflicting events, but that's the evidence, and testimony in a court is also evidence. Some people say, well, you have to have a smoking gun. Right. But we know you don't. We know circumstantial evidence, we know witness testimony, things like that can help. And in this case, in the first trial, they only had one supporting witness. Judge Stephen O'Neill, the judge, he only allowed the prosecutor to bring on one corroborating witness that would say the victim here, Andrea Constand, that what happened to her happened to them also. So there was really only one corroborating witness, and that some may say, well, that looks kind of weak if you're on the jury and that's all you're seeing is one account of something that happened in 2004, famous guy. Sometimes people say they're out for money. Sometimes they are out for money. And all you have is one witness that says, yeah, it happened to me too. Mm-hmm. In this trial, it looks like the judge is going to allow 5 supporting witnesses. So that's going to open it up. And, that may bring some more credibility to Miss Constand's case. What do you think?
Well, that's one thing I was going to ask you is that if the first trial was a mistrial, there would have to be new evidence brought in order for it to proceed forward, I would think.
Well, it's interesting, and here's a piece of politics that is going to be added onto this. There's two things that are new in this trial, I would say. One is you're having this additional evidence being allowed, these additional what we call pattern witnesses to show that there's a pattern to his conduct, Mr. Cosby, and that that this happened to other people, which may tend to corroborate the victim's story. So that's going to be big. We're going to see how that goes. But we're also in the middle now, as you know, of the Me Too movement, which didn't exist, several years back when when the previous trial happened. So now we're in just culturally, we're in the middle of a Me Too movement, and remember the Harvey Weinstein and everything else. And so, now we're in a little different culture. I think most people, even the jurors that have are sitting on the bench are, I guess we're all part of the Me Too movement, whether we want it to be or not. And the judges even issued, warnings in court saying nobody's going to wear any Me Too shirts or anything like that.
You're kidding.
So culture is playing a part of it. That's one big thing I would say is also different. I would also say that there is another issue that some people have raised. I was reading on Twitter, seeing kind of what the people are saying, but the prosecutor in this case was elected. And part of what he ran on was prosecuting Bill Cosby. He said, why didn't the last guy prosecute Bill Cosby? So now you have sort of a prosecutor that's sort of bound to the people, so to speak, to try to prosecute Cosby. So there's mixing politics in there. We got the Me Too movement in here. Also, there's going to be a ruling on a deposition that Cosby gave I think it was 2004. He gave a deposition when he was sued by Andrea Constand. He was sued in a civil court, and he had to give a deposition. You can't take the fifth. Well, you can try to take the fifth in a civil case, but he gave a depo. Bill Cosby gave a depo, and he admitted that he had cheated on his wife and he had used Quaaludes, with girls. So they had that in the first trial, so that was part of the evidence, but the judge hasn't ruled on it in this trial, so that's going to be a wild card. We're going to have to see what happens with that. There's also another, what I would call, Cosby has two new aces in the hole. One of those is his new defense lawyer. He has hired celebrity lawyer Tom Mesereau. Do you remember him at all?
From the O.J. trial.
No. He was from the Michael Jackson 2005 child molestation.
The guy with long hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, gray long hair.
Yeah.
Didn't we see him in court one time?
I don't know if we saw him in court, but we were at the court in, I think it was Santa Maria, right? Where we talked to some of the bailiffs and stuff that had told us about the trial.
That's right.
That went out there. It was a small courthouse in this giant case, but so he got he got MJ acquitted on child molestation charges. So he's here. He's high profile. So we've got that new element to it. We also apparently have what I would call a Cosby ace in the hole, a woman named Marguerite Jackson. And Marguerite Jackson apparently is going to testify for Mr. Cosby on behalf of the defense. And she apparently is going to try to testify. I don't know if she gets it in over a hearsay objection, but payoff testimony. They're going to find out what Andrea Constand was paid off when she settled her civil case.
Really?
So that's going to come out, and apparently what Marguerite Jackson will testify to is that she heard Constand telling one of her friends, or two of her friends, co-workers, I'm going to frame a high-profile celebrity and get some money, essentially.
Really?
And that was back in 2005. So you have this, what I call the ace in the hole, if she is perceived as credible, with some good lawyering, you never know what's going to happen. There's been a lot of time, as you mentioned, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s where most of these accusations racked up. A lot of that stuff has to be kept out of court because it's, highly prejudicial, and it's a long time ago and nothing was actually proven. So I expect it to be a really interesting trial. We're going to cover it to the extent we can. Also, we had some great opening day tidbits for you. We had a topless protester out there today.
You're kidding.
Who I don't know if she was bottomless as well, but she came out all painted up and had like rapist on her painted on and some other dirty words I won't say because maybe the FCC doesn't like it. But anyway, but she came out protesting apparently. Bill Cosby was dressed in a nice dark pinstripe dapper suit, and apparently he looked like he just was kind of laughing at it. And she was running around. You can see the video online. It's hilarious. So you had that, and then you also have Verdoyer. Verdoyer is where you pick the jury. It sounds to me like they do have the jury picked. One of the jurors, and I think this is today, they had an issue with the juror. One of the jurors said, I can't be impartial. He's guilty. And so they're either trying to get him off the jury or, try to give him some kind of limiting instruction. But, those are always hard, as they say, but hard to unring the bell.
I tried to get off on a juror one time, and it did not work.
Frontline, Lisi, I'm shocked.
I know, right? But you know what? The awesome part is I was there all day long. I didn't get picked. I went home at 5 and I got a check for like $7.42.
Well, that's more than I
for
pay
my
you.
services.
But see, you got to go and do your part. If I ever got called, I would go do my part for sure. So anyway, so we've got that going. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We got new defense counsel. Again, I mentioned the prior jury. Everybody always wants to know, well, what's the jury makeup? It always depends on the jury, right? Forget the facts. Just tell me who's the jury, as some people will say. Well, I think at some point, everything comes down to a race game in America sometimes, and it's unfortunate. I wish we didn't have to look at things through these lenses, but we know people will. And when it comes to that, the question is, well, what was the makeup of the prior jury versus the current jury? And the current jury apparently was picked from Montgomery County, where the courthouse is. And the prior jury was picked from a Pittsburgh suburb. So I don't know if that's going to play into it. For you demographic, psychosocial analyzers, there may be something to look at there. But the general makeup of the prior jury was 6 white men and 1 black man, 1 woman, and 4 white women. 1 black woman, 1 male black man, and I just hate even saying those terms. I think we're all just people, and someday we will get over that, because I absolutely hate doing that.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on. The current jury, apparently now 10 of them are white, 2 of them are black, 3 of the 6 alternatives are also black. So anyway, they will be sequestered, just as the last jury was sequestered, and that's really what we're looking at. So that's going to give you a overview of what's going on here in the Cosby trial. Day 1, expect this to get more interesting. Frontline Lisi, let's make a prediction. We're right here at the beginning. We don't have the benefit of any of the testimony or facts. What does your gut tell you?
I think that he's going to be found guilty.
Why?
I just do.
Okay, I think the opposite.
Okay.
I think he's going to be found not guilty. And I think the reason is, 1, celebrity status is going to play big. He's been around a long time, built a lot of goodwill. He's older in his life. I think his age is going to play into this a little bit. I think his lawyer, Tom Mesereau, is a great lawyer, and I think he's gonna make things happen.
Who was his last lawyer? Do you remember?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. Next show.
We'll put that on the next show, but that's what I think, and
Stay tuned to see how this folds out.
And I also think it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you don't have the hard evidence, it's really tough to you're relying on testimony only, and I just think that makes it a really, really tough case when you're considering putting someone like him away for the rest of his life. So that's my 2 cents. This is Verdict Nation. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you follow, share, make some comments in the box below if you don't like what we're saying, you completely disagree with us. This is not legal advice. Throw your comments down in the comment section. We will be opening up for phone calls next time around, or actually once we get into the case a little bit, so we all have something to say. But this is Attorney Steve. This is Verdict Nation. This is
Frontline Lisi.
We'll see y'all again. Have a great day. I got to get back to work.